He always hid under the woman's bed. Then in the middle of the night, he would quietly crawl out, twist open the lid, and place the drug over the woman's mouth. After a slight frown, this man could do whatever he wanted. He not only used the woman's toothbrush to brush his teeth, putting it back in the exact same place, but after taking a shower, he would whistle while cleaning up his hair, then wash himself completely clean. After that, he would crawl into the goddess's bed, wrap her in his arms, and finally drift into a sweet dream. When the alarm rang, he would put on his clothes, everything done lightly and skillfully as if routine. The woman was woken by her phone ringing, and she felt exhausted from the sleep. After washing up, she carefully placed her toothbrush back, then opened the fridge to prepare breakfast, but she didn't know why the milk had been disappearing so quickly lately. Before leaving, she moved the rack full of men's underwear to the doorway, and when changing shoes, she deliberately straightened a pair of men's leather shoes. She didn't know if it would work, but she hoped those men's items could scare off intruders. After unlocking 3 locks, she noticed something was wrong. She always had the habit of closing the lock cover, and the buttons were full of fingerprints. Cautious by nature, she didn't dare gamble on any chance. So after wiping the keypad, she set a new password. After finishing a day's work, she greeted the security guard as usual. But just as she was about to go upstairs, the guard stopped her.
601호 맞으시죠?
네.
이거 누가 맡겨놓고 갔니?
After signing, the woman took her package, and when she arrived at her door, she realized her mother had visited earlier, and since she had changed the code, her mother left the package downstairs. But seeing the half-open lock cover sent a wave of unease rushing through her. Thankfully, after a phone call, she found out it was only because her mother hadn't closed it tightly. The woman turned on the humidifier, feeling grateful for another peaceful night. But just as she was about to turn off the lights, she heard a noise at the door. She pretended to switch off the light, then got out of bed and walked toward the door. When the doorknob slowly turned, she covered her mouth in fear, terrified to make a sound. She gathered her courage and walked to the door, but through the peephole she saw no one at all. She carefully unlocked the door, but the hallway was also empty. As she was about to return to her room, she spotted a cigarette butt on the floor.
지문 검사요? 이걸로요?
Her nerves were on edge. She called the police twice a month, but the officers were already annoyed and showed little patience. And since nothing had happened, there was no case to file. She kept staring at the lock, unable to sleep for a long time. But somehow, that man appeared in her home again that night, gently stroking her forehead, his tender actions unable to hide his infatuation. The woman overslept again that day, feeling even more drained, but she didn't think much of it and stumbled into the bathroom. She wanted to check the surveillance cameras in the morning, and the security guard readily agreed. But since she was running late, she arranged to check them another day. Right after work, she went to look at other apartments, but the rent was far too high for her to afford. She had chosen her current place because of its safety, which was why she had rented it.
터가 안 좋은 건지 머리가 항상 무거워.
Determined to move, she stopped being timid at work, and when a colleague tried to steal her clients, she refused to put up with it anymore.
119번 고객님, 이쪽으로 오시면 됩니다.
The man sat in front of her, and they began the business process. Seeing him holding a bank pamphlet, she tried to sell him some products, habitually asking about his marital and job status. Her tone of concern only meant to persuade him to buy insurance, but the man's faint smile clearly showed he misunderstood.
혹시 댁은 어디세요?
봉천동이요.
저도 같은 동네 사는데 이웃 주민이네요.
He awkwardly tried to flirt, while she simply asked about his savings. When she learned he had none, she handed him her business card. After the banking process was completed, the man unexpectedly invited her to have a cup of coffee.
네?
적금 들 테니까 그냥 주민끼리 커피 한 잔 할 수 있지 않나 해서.
적금은요, 고객님. 그냥 다음에 제가 고객님 조건에 더 맞는 상품으로 권해드릴게요.
The woman suddenly changed her attitude, which instantly ignited the man's anger. In his eyes, she was nothing but a snob. When just moments ago she seemed to be giving him signals, their heated argument drew a crowd, and the woman found herself unable to explain. Seeing that the commotion had drawn the bank manager, The man became even more furious.
괜찮습니다, 과장님. 제가 해결하겠습니다.
뭘 해결하겠다는 거야? 내가 잘못했어? 내가 쓰레기야? 지금 내가 뭘 잘못했다고 지금?
Fortunately, the manager called security and asked the man to leave. The woman pressed the button for the next customer, then apologized in shame. That night, when she returned home, the security guard was being scolded for yesterday's police call, and she felt a pang of guilt before hurrying into the elevator, pressing the button to escape the awkwardness. The man stood like a pillar behind her, making no move. But what terrified her was that he didn't press any floor button. Only when she saw him leave did she finally feel relieved. And the way he reached into his pocket confirmed that he really was her neighbor. She seemed to have developed a habit of staring at the door lock for half an hour before bed, but that man had already hidden under her bed long before she came back. Although he repeated the same actions every day, the sense of control over everything gave him great satisfaction. Because she was about to become a full-time employee, the woman worked late alone at the bank, and from a careless scrape with the paper, her finger was cut. But then the phone suddenly rang, showing no number, so she could only hang up and use her own money to cover the loss. At the bus stop, a drunk homeless man was making a scene, and she felt frightened, but the call came again, and without hesitation she hung up.
춥지 않아요?
When she turned around, she saw it was the same man from yesterday, smiling obsequiously as he spoke, but she prepared to get on the bus.
잠깐만. 한참 기다렸는데. 버스도 끊길 시간이고 동네도 같은데 그냥 저랑 같이 택시 타고 가요.
She insisted on taking the bus, but that man refused to let go. After the last bus left, the man's expression turned completely dark. Fortunately, a BMW stopped just in time, and it was the bank supervisor who had come by chance.
왜 이러냐니. 뭔가 오해하시나 본데.
오해는 무슨
갈 테니까 진정하시고. 무섭네 이 사람들. 근데 당신 이 사람의 애인이야?
The supervisor said nothing, but he already secretly had feelings for her. After a few stern warnings, the woman got into the supervisor's car. He drove her downstairs, and she went up by herself. But just as she entered her apartment, she found the power had gone out. While she was still confused, a sound came from the door, startling her, and her eyes filled with fear as she looked at the lock.
김민 씨, 저 김성호인데요. 차에 지갑을 두고 갔더라고요.
She slowly approached the peephole, only to see the supervisor holding her wallet. She opened the door and hurried to apologize. Noticing the power outage, the supervisor offered to help her check it.
아니요, 괜찮아요. 저 밑에 내려가서 경비실 가서 물어보죠, 뭐.
경민 씨만 괜찮으면 제가 좀 봐드릴게요. 별거 아닐지도 몰라요.
Using his phone as a light, he found the circuit breaker had tripped, and with a light push, the room's electricity was restored. But when he saw the men's underwear drying in the room, his face showed obvious embarrassment. Luckily, the woman explained honestly, which secretly delighted the supervisor. He asked to use the bathroom to wash his hands, but the woman wanted to tidy up her personal items first. While cleaning, she noticed the toilet seat had been lifted. She already sensed something was wrong, but still let the supervisor in. Only when he was washing his hands did she remember the crucial detail.
근데 과장님 어떻게 아셨어요? 저는 말씀드린 적이 없는데.
뭐가요?
저희 집 호수요, 601호.
Just as the supervisor was about to explain, the woman fled the room. His dismissive look showed that he didn't take her reaction seriously. The woman waited downstairs for a long time before the police finally arrived. This time, the police chief came along to avoid repeated calls in the future. The woman felt certain the supervisor was the stalker, but she wasn't completely sure, and she even told the police her door code. The supervisor ended up dead in her home, and the woman became the prime suspect. Though she cried bitterly, the chief remained stern.
집 호수는 로비에 있던
In the eyes of the police, she had deliberately left her wallet behind and, together with the man hiding in her house, killed the supervisor. At that moment, the men's underwear and leather shoes in the apartment became evidence. Fortunately, the chief received a call from his superior, giving the woman some relief. But after the police searched her entire apartment and found no evidence, she was released after 24 hours. When she returned to work, Everyone looked at her strangely. The general manager even called her into the office and rejected her application for full-time employment. The woman knew all of this was because of herself, so she left without arguing. Back at the apartment, she remembered the surveillance she had wanted to check before, but she found only the elevator camera worked, while the hallway cameras were fake.
저 구체적으로 어떤 게 필요하신지.
그날 누가 저희 집 문을 막 두드리고 갔는데 누군지 좀 알려고요. 담배꽁초도 떨어져 있었고.
The security guard said drunk people often mistook their doors, so this kind of thing was nothing unusual to them. But the woman stood at her own door for a long time without going in. Too frightened, she asked the guard to help open the door. After carefully checking the apartment and finding nothing wrong, the guard reassured her, and she finally felt safe. But after he left, while tidying her room, she found a key card that didn't belong to her. Driven by curiosity, she went up to the top floor and began trying the card on each door. Hours passed quickly, yet she still hadn't found the owner of the card. After going back and forth many times, she was exhausted. She walked into a room, and though messy, it still seemed to belong to a woman, with thick dust on the table and a foul-smelling toilet. What was strange was that there was still yesterday's mail inside. Even more coincidentally, the resident turned out to be one of her bank clients. To clear her doubts, the woman asked her best friend at the bank for help, and using her position, she found that the girl had a card record yesterday, always the same amount of 3,201, always at the same time. The woman tried to contact her neighbor, but no one ever answered. Now unwilling to bother the police again, she decided to wait near the convenience store. They checked every item priced at 3,200, then waited by the counter. The cashier's voice rang out. Exactly 3,201. The girl wearing a mask matched the timing perfectly. The two followed her all the way to a demolition zone, but turning a corner, they found the girl had vanished. They had no choice but to split up. The woman searched for a long time and saw a stray cat, and the porridge worth 3,200 had already been eaten by the little creature. Watching the cat run into a house, the woman pushed open the half-closed door. It was just that this area no longer had any base stations, and the phone signal didn't work here. She gathered her courage and knocked on the door, but there was no response. Seeing a lock identical to her own, a thought came to her. She tried several simple passwords, but none worked. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly thought, since the lock was the same, could the password also be the same? She carefully unlocked the door and peeked inside. The room was messy, filled with clutter everywhere. Her call went through, but this time her friend didn't answer. She saw the bedroom inside, and faint moans were coming from within. The moment she pushed the door open, a warm light shone on her face, but the sight of a frail girl tied to the bed made her cover her mouth in shock. The thin girl was being injected with an unknown liquid. Trembling, she opened her phone and dialed the police.
여보세요? 저기 사람이에요.
Through the blurry window, she saw a man. Just as she was about to turn and run, the sound of the keypad came from the door. When the man returned to the room, she was already hiding under the bed. The woman watched in terror as he paced around, whispering softly to the girl on the bed. But then his phone suddenly slipped from his hand. The fear at such close range made her heart nearly stop. Fortunately, the man only picked up the phone and didn't look under the bed.
오늘은 얘기해야 될 것 같아. 내가 다른 사람이 생겼어.
He drew out the syringe, preparing to end the girl's life. Sure enough, after the injection, the girl began to convulse violently.
근데 봤을지도 몰라. 니네 집 바로 밑에 살아.
After dealing with what he considered a burden, the man left the bedroom. Hearing the sound of the front door closing, she finally crawled out. The girl on the bed was foaming at the mouth, but she couldn't spare a thought for her. Just as she was about to escape, the man came back. The woman hid behind the door, watching as he lifted the blanket, revealing the girl's legs had been sawed off. A punishment for trying to escape. The sound of a police siren came from outside, and the man quickly went to the window to check. Seeing the rare chance, the woman hurried to slip away quietly. She managed not to make a sound, but the terror in her heart made her squeeze her eyes shut. She looked toward the front door of the house, then once again dropped to the floor. Through the gap under the table, she saw the man dismembering the girl. The extreme fear once again overwhelmed her. Because the man suddenly stopped, she trembled in terror, not daring to make a sound. Fortunately, the man only grabbed the orange cat and threw it outside. The woman avoided discovery by sheer luck. When the man resumed dismembering, she quietly moved toward the door.
핸드폰 떨어뜨리셨네요. 전화 내가 받을까요?
Without a moment's hesitation, the woman burst through the door. The man didn't chase her, but simply stared from afar. But after turning a few corners, the man appeared before her again like a phantom. The woman's cries echoed far, but in the deserted block no one could hear. Terror struck again, and the woman bolted in a desperate run. She hid inside a shop, and the man pursued her there. Only after the footsteps faded did she finally breathe a sigh of relief. She peeked out, preparing to escape, and the silence around her was eerie, but thankfully, it seemed over. The woman's eyes were filled with terror, while the man stared at her intently. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out, and the man was knocked to the ground. It was her friend, who had heard her cries and rushed over, but she was no match for the man. The woman froze in fear, knowing what this man had done, and that she would be his next target. Luckily, a patrol car happened to pass by, and both women narrowly escaped. The police searched the room, but they found nothing at all. When the chief learned that the woman hadn't even clearly seen the man's face, he was powerless to do anything. But as the search expanded, the police eventually found severed limbs, and what was even more terrifying was that the victim's hand still clutched the girl's business card. Because of that business card, the man from before came under police suspicion. He kept the same defiant look, holding on to his arrogance even with the police. The police presented evidence directly to stalking video, but even if he wanted revenge, he had no chance. The police had no solid proof, only the woman's accusation about his watch. So after some confrontation, they could only wait for fingerprint results. The girl moved to a new place and returned her keys to the security guard. The man walked out of the station due to lack of evidence, his eyes full of fury. The woman thought the real criminal had already been caught, but she still installed security bars. The man went to the building's security guard, trying to find out where she had moved. But thankfully the guard kept his principles and didn't say a word. Just after the woman finished fixing her door lock, there was a knock outside. No matter how she asked, there was no response. A wave of fear rose inside her, leaving her tense and unsettled. Looking out the window, she saw the delivery man leaving. She opened the package and found the phone she had lost while escaping. Photo after photo appeared, all of her sleeping. She quickly answered her friend's call, but then a dark shadow flickered past. She saw the man hide in the bathroom, then saw her friend enter the apartment, but no matter how she shouted, her friend couldn't hear a thing. Unlocking the layers of locks, she ran in panic. She finally reached the ground floor, only to be stopped by the entry system. Looking again at her phone screen, she saw her friend about to be harmed. Luckily, someone came out, and she slipped back into the building. But without her key, she could only wait helplessly at her apartment door. By then, the man had already pulled out a saw, and everything was on the verge of disaster. She shouted desperately for help, but no one came. In panic, she grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed it against the lock.
잘도 뛰더라.
The man struck her hard, then dragged her, insisting on taking her for a coffee. A neighbor came out at the noise, but the man wasn't afraid at all.
뭘 봐. 안 들어가!
Just as he was about to attack again, someone rushed in and knocked him down. With the help of the police, the woman finally broke open the lock, but inside there was no one, only her friend with her right leg severed. Yet this diversion was only another chance for the man to invade again. In the police's reasoning, the man had staged the scene just to lure out the woman's location, but fortunately, his fingerprints covered the tool bag, giving the police solid evidence. Her friend's surgery went well, and the doctors reattached her right leg. The police officer who had left earlier returned and gave the woman a surveillance camera. When the woman got home, she seemed absent-minded. She habitually placed the men's shoes at the door, then cleaned the entire apartment. Then she opened a package and placed the penguin on her shelf. While shopping at the supermarket, someone greeted her. She found the man's face familiar but couldn't remember where she had seen him. Only when he said he was the building's security guard did she recall.
이사 가신 곳은 괜찮으세요?
네, 뭐 그럭저럭.
She didn't want to keep talking, but the guard kept asking questions, forcing her to smile awkwardly and leave. The guard's eyes were filled with disappointment.
범인 잡았다는 얘기 들었어요.
네.
그 새끼 이제 더 이상 경민 씨 못 괴롭힐 거예요.
He seemed strangely proud, while the woman, unsettled by the oddness, turned and left.
삼천이 병원입니다.
Looking back, she saw the porridge and the old-fashioned watch, and fear surged inside her as she fled. She deliberately took a longer route before finally returning home. Her phone suddenly rang. It was the police officer from before.
절대로 그 밖에 나가시면 안 됩니다. 그 DNA 매치가 안 돼서 김기정이도 풀려났거든요. 제가 지금 대구로 갈 테니까 그냥 무조건 집에 계세요. 김기정이 살해당했어요.
Hearing that the man had been killed, the woman froze for a long time. The man had died in his home, and the police had surrounded the scene. The woman obediently sat on her bed, waiting for the officer to arrive and protect her. Turning her head toward the table, she noticed something chilling. There was suddenly a box of porridge. She thought of the security guard she had just met, and a sense of dread rushed over her. She turned and looked at the penguin. Though she didn't want to, she opened her phone, rewound to when she had left the house, and fast-forwarded. A shadow had walked right into her home, and her face turned pale. The man removed his mask. It was the same guard from the supermarket. In her shocked gaze, he crawled under her bed. Her right leg was trembling. A fear close to death filled the entire room. She sensed something was wrong, but in her shock she was completely unable to move, turning the daily life of a woman into a disturbing spectacle, turning her reality into a threat against women living alone. It exposed the constant fear and unease single women face against malice and danger, chilling me to the bone. One should never harbor ill intent, but always keep vigilance. One good movie a day. Looking forward to meeting you next time.